Hi, everyone. It's Marcy from Nina here. So great to see you. I'm very excited today. I have Faleen Mahoney from Scribe. Faleen, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. So tell me a little bit about what Scribe does.
So, Scribe is a provider of non-stenographic depositions. The traditional way that depositions have been done through the ages is through stenography, where a court reporter takes down the testimony by hand using a stenography machine while the testimony is being gathered. The pandemic, as crazy as it was, it opened up a lot of new doors for virtual everything. Um, Stenographers do a great job, but honestly, there's a shortage of being able to, get somebody in a hurry, especially, if you have a last minute deposition. So non-steno, we do the same thing. The video is what's admissible to the court, just the same way that a transcript is when it's done through stenography. In courts, we have some states that it's not admissible, but most states are admissible, with non-stenographic depositions. So that's kind of the difference between what we do and the way it's been done traditionally. The notary logs in, they open the meeting room, they host the deposition, gather some information from all the parties and the witness before we get started. They they're like the mediator. They swear in the witness. If people are talking over each other, they uh, take care of making sure that the testimony that's gathered, that people are not speaking over each other, and that everything is clear, that we're getting a good recording, because that video recording is admissible in court, just as if that witness were sitting there in the courtroom.
That's so interesting. I didn't know there was a shortage of stenographers out there. Just for anyone who's listening, can you give me like a brief definition of what a deposition actually is?
Yes, of course. So, depositions are taken to gather testimony. The scheduling attorney will be the lawyer who is doing the questioning of that witness. They'll file a notice of deposition with their court. We have state court, federal court, arbitrations. For the most part, those are the ones that get deposition notices filed. Once that deposition notice is filed with that court, then the witness is to appear at that given date and time. We get reschedules, but sooner or later we end up gathering that testimony. So the attorneys use the testimony as leverage, to get the details of the case. We have backed witnesses. We have witnesses who actually saw an accident happen, for example. And as that testimony is gathered, then that testimony is used when the lawyers file motions, in court regarding one way or the other. And then it will eventually be used if the case goes to trial. It'll be used for trial testimony. So that's what depositions are.
It sounds super interesting. So I love the fact that then you use independent notaries. So let me ask you, do they have to have any certain skill set or credentials outside of just being a commissioned notary in their state?
So all of our notaries are commissioned in their state. They have to pass, let's say, similar to what you do with loan signings. You have to pass a background check. You also need to have E&O insurance for 100,000.
Okay.
Let's see, background check, E&O, and then just your notary commission has to be, valid. So we do check on all that. When things expire, you'll have to sit out until you get it renewed. But
That makes sense. So for the
yeah.
background check, do you run it on the notary or does the notary provide you? So for us in the real estate field, we'll get notary checks
So
through backgrounds
for
online or merchants bonding. Can
yeah.
we, I'm not merchant bonding, but backgrounds
So for
online or. Mhm.
Yeah, for example, I do my own background check through the NNA.
Yes.
So, any organization that does background checks for notaries is fine.
Okay.
But the notary is expected to do their own and submit it to us.
Perfect. All right. Most of us have it, so that's great.
Yeah.
Is there any training involved? Like, how would they know? Is there a script that you give them? How would they know the information in order to conduct this
Yes.
actual
Yes.
session?
As a matter of fact, we have an LMS system. It's an online training system where they log in. If you were to just log in and go through the training beginning to end without any stops, it would probably be a couple of hours, but you can absolutely start and stop. You know, if something comes up and you need to get back to it, you can also log into it for a while for review. So once you finish the LMS training, we have a notary process document that explains everything from A to Z. That's like the Bible, if you want to go back and refer to how anything is done. So you'll have access to, you know, reference materials. We, at the end of the LMS training, we do a final exam, and it's literally just a test to record preparing the script. So we talk about how to prepare your script in the training. The final exam is just a test sample of, you know, doing the script for the read-in when you go on the record. We'll do a couple of practice runs, and then we actually have the notary do the script. The things we look for are a stable internet connection. If
Mhm.
you don't have a stable internet connection, then this is not going to work for you.
Okay,
Your download speed to be able to attend a Zoom meeting successfully needs to be well over 50 megabits per second. Most people are running between 100 and 200 nowadays. We
Mhm.
don't have a lot of people that, you know, that are below that, but if it is, it's going to be a problem. The second thing that we're looking for is, do you have a quiet, secure place? This deposition material is extremely confidential, so we
Mhm.
can't have you in the living room with, you know, people running around in and out. You know, it just needs to be a secure, quiet place to be able to host your depositions. Um, and then really after that, you just need to have a good knowledge of how to run a Zoom meeting. If you're not familiar with that, we can absolutely work with you on that. We've got some resources we can send you online, but you'll actually be practicing. It's called shadow training. So we will have you shadow an experienced notary for 3 or 4 events, and then we'll flip it. When you're ready to host, we'll set you up as a host, and we'll have an experienced trainer, you know, call it, do a reverse shadow where you host the position and they're there for you. Once you get through the second phase with the trainer shadowing you and you start hosting solo, you'll always have my phone number or Dave's phone number in the main line to Scribe. If you get in an event and it's something that's kind of it's out of the box, it's not something you typically deal with, you call us and we come join you and assist you with that. So we're not big on just throwing people to the wolves. We want to make sure that you're confident, trained, and prepared before we put you in, you know, in a meeting, in a deposition to host.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of training and support and tools from the notary, which I love. And I do like that we talked about confidentiality. So it is important to have an office space or, be home alone and your kids aren't running through or your dog's not barking in the background. How
Yeah.
long does a typical deposition last?
Boy, that's a good one. I wish I had a crystal ball because it varies greatly. We actually recommend that if you're going to schedule a deposition with us in the morning, please do not book a hard stop for that day because we honestly do not know if it's going to last an hour or if it's going to last 5 hours. The
Gotcha.
norm, the norm is between 2 and 3, but it could any deposition on any given day, depending on the content, the witness, the complexity of the case, it could be very short or very long. We just never know. What I have people do a lot of times is if they, if they have like a loan signing they want to do, they'll book and do it on the same day. They'll take the morning loan signings and take depositions in the afternoon that day because there's no hard stop if you're scheduled for the afternoon.
That makes sense. So now,
Mhm.
is there any special software that the notary has to have? I assume that you provide the Zoom link to join and handle the recording, so they need to know how to navigate Zoom, but do they need anything else software-wise or platform-wise to get to?
Um, we do everything, all of our job forms that you update while you're hosting the deposition are provided for, through Google Docs. So it's a good idea to have your own Gmail address that you do your scribe assignments with. Some notaries use their regular, work notary email, even if it's not a Gmail. but they still have access to Chrome because you will have to have Chrome to be able to access Scribe to host your depositions. And you'll have to have Google Chrome to be able to open your job forms as a Google Doc and update that. But the cool thing about it is everything we do is through links. So there's no attaching anything to an email and going back and forth. You know, you basically log into your work platform, access all your stuff through that. It all opens up in Google Docs. And when you're done, you close it and it's updated automatically. And we have access to it on the other end when we do production that night.
Oh, that sounds incredible. So for the most part, you guys are a national company with the exception of a few states that don't allow it.
Right,
You work coast to coast.
right, right.
And do you hire notaries directly? I think you told me that you use a signing service, right, to retain your notaries.
We do. We procure all of our notaries through Notary Pros. They are a nationwide notary service. And like, for example, even though we started out in Texas and probably half of our business is still here, it's difficult for me to get out there by myself and go find somebody in New York in a
Sure.
minute, or somebody in Iowa in a minute, or somebody in Kentucky in a minute. Notary Pros can literally, boom, they can have somebody, that can at least show up and swear in a witness until we get them trained. We would just have them appear at the Zoom meeting with a notary, swear in the witness, and then the experienced notary would continue with the job form and the rest of the production during the event. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to, have that relationship with Notary Pros.
Yeah. So we will post in the comments Faleen's information, as long as Scribe's information too, so that anyone watching this, if you want to get more information or you want to sign up, we'll send that. I know notaries are going to ask, but how do they get paid in terms of, is it per an appointment or per hour? Is it the same flat fee, whether it's a 2-hour or 5-hour? How does the pay structure work?
So notaries are paid for what's called on the record time. So like, for example, you join the meeting room, the witness joins, all the lawyers join, you gather some information. And when we're ready to start gathering that testimony, the scheduling attorney will start the recording. So when they start the recording, you'll start out with a greeting, good afternoon, we're on the record. Today's date is July 2nd, 2025. The time is 11:14 a.m. And you'll continue from there. From the minute that recording starts, that's when your fee starts. So you're paid hourly for the on the record time. So if you go off the record for a break and you break for 30 minutes for lunch, you're not getting paid for that time because we're not getting paid for that time. So
Sure.
the clients pay us on the record for the time of the recording. So we pass through that payment onto the notary. So it's on the record time. And it
Right.
varies, the compensation varies by state. So it's not one size fits all. We have different demographics. Some states have a higher cost of living, so we pay more in those states, for example.
That makes sense. Is there a range? Like, is it like $15 to $30 or $10 to
Say the
$25?
range is more 25 to 35,
Okay, that makes sense.
depending on what state they're in.
Okay, great. And it does sound like the notary they're sort of like controlling the situation, right? So
As
not
the
only are
host,
they
it is their
recording and
meeting.
issuing the oath,
Mhm.
it sounds like they have to kind of, move it along without outright moving it along, right? There has to be that finesse to make the whole process go smoothly.
Right. And that's one reason why we really recommend that you shadow live events. There's a recording of a deposition in the training, and it's a real deposition that happened last summer, but you don't see the meeting prep that was in play before they got started. You just really have to have that experience by attending a live event and seeing for yourself, you know, how you greet the client, the witness, the information you gather from them. If they have questions, if it's a simple question, for the most part, we can answer that. If it's something a little more complex, then we direct them to email support at Scribe. There's just a few nuances to hosting a deposition. And then you have some attorneys who get along great, they show up, they do their questioning, there's not a lot of animosity. Then you have some that are extremely contentious, and you have to cut in and remind them, excuse me, if you're yelling over the top of each other, we're not going to get any of this testimony. So, please, I understand, that we're at odds here, but please, one person at a time. And court reporters do something similar. Could you imagine if they were, doing it by hand and you have people yelling over the top of each other? They can't take notes, for two people at a time, just like we can't record two people at a time and
That makes
transcribe.
sense.
So,
Are there any
we're
other special skills you think notaries need to accomplish this?
if they have a little bit of legal experience, especially litigation, their learning curve is going to be shorter. But to be honest with you, I have educators on my team who had no legal experience whatsoever, but they were just savvy and picked up on it quick. And I'm just as comfortable putting them in front of a new client that knows nothing as what I am putting people with, legal experience in front of a client. Just their learning curve is a little bit shorter is my main thing.
I love that. So it does sound like they need some really good time management skills, right? You certainly want to make sure
Yes,
that you're on time for these types of appointments, that they're not
there
always,
are, because
you
I can tell you right now, lawyers do not like to wait
know. Yes.
or be stood up. If there, 4 or 5 people sit in a meeting room with no notary, that's a really bad look for everybody. Notary, us, so it is imperative that you have excellent time management skills and the ability to communicate. And hey, an emergency has come up. I am absolutely not going to be able to be there in an hour. Help. Make sure that you reach out immediately. I get that life happens, but we have to know. The sooner we know, the better we are at being able to pivot and make sure that client's still taken care of.
Well, I love that, that's certainly important in any job. And notaries are, should be very good communicators in general. So making sure they know what's going on. And of course, dress professionally and organized. Sounds like you have to be
Right,
organized, right? And
right,
making sure that
right.
all your paperwork is in the proper place, that you have all the links, that you can jump on the Zoom, that your technology is working. We all know that technology can fail us in the most important of
Right.
moments
Yeah. And so if you
sometimes.
log on just a few minutes early to do a system check and everything's fine, then you can just turn your camera and mic off and go about your business until you get started. But I make it a rule of thumb at the very least to log in 15 minutes early. And I personally feel better if I can log in 30 minutes early. And like I said, just turn everything off and continue working on something else while you wait the rest of that time. It's better
I
safe
love
than
this.
sorry.
This is great information. And I think, hopefully the notaries out there will consider adding this on as another service. Like, what a great way to help your community and get some
Yeah.
knowledge in there. If you're thinking about becoming a paralegal or attorney down the road,
Right.
like getting some insight in it on your daily basis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just better to not have all your eggs in one basket. That's kind of how I look at it.
That's true. And if you live in a state where like the weather is bad in the winter and you don't want to drive around, right? Or you're a
Right.
stay-at-home mom, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of taking care of, ill family members. There are all sorts of reasons. Maybe you don't like to drive,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you have agoraphobia, or I mean, there are multiple reasons people don't want. Sometimes I just want to leave my house, right?
Right.
I just want to
Well,
stay
well, like in my
inside.
case, I live in a very rural area, so I do some mobile notary work here and there on the weekends just because I like it. I like to get out. But there's just not a lot of it here. I'm in a
Mm,
very rural area. And so this is an option to supplement, your mobile notary stuff if that's what you're doing.
I love this. So, for everyone listening, consider maybe adding this in. Again, we'll put in the comments for you the Scribe website and Faleen's information. So, if you think that it might be something for you, take a look around, take a peek, reach out. Let's see if we can't get you, another side service, another business to add on to your current business. Let's diversify a little bit. Faleen, thank you so much for your time today. I certainly appreciate talking to you.
My pleasure.
Everyone watching, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will be back soon. Thank you.